Hey everyone, this is a podcast I recorded with Wall Street Stonks. We talked about NFTs, different stuff in the crypto space, a lot of things that I wanted to touch on with him about, and let's get into it. We can even just sort of casually start the podcast now, kind of, because it's just going to be sort of all over the place anyway.
Sure.
At least that's kind of the format I was hoping for. Yeah, no, it's cool to finally meet you, man. Fuck, I've been trying to line this up for the past little bit.
It's nice to put a face to the name that
Oh,
I've
yeah.
been typing to for so long.
Right? Likewise. Well, I guess it's different for you too, because I've actually been able to kind of like see your YouTube videos and stuff, right?
True.
Yeah. No, I wanted to get more sort of like involved in the space a bit. It's just, yeah, I guess I'm kind of particular in some ways, or also just don't really know how to jump right into it. But I feel like this is sort of a good like foray. I just kind of want to like talk to someone who's, obviously been in the space for a minute and stuff, and like has a good understanding of everything and stuff too.
Is that me?
Yeah. So like,
Nice.
I guess for like some background too. So I think I first found out about you and NFTs and stuff, but I found out about you in general maybe 2020 with the TikTok stuff and the Wall Street Stonks. Because that's kind of how I even initially got into NFTs. It was actually, I was starting to get into all the stock stuff with all the meme and everything, right? I didn't get in just because of that. It was actually coincidentally around that timing. Like I just started to investing around then. I guess it was maybe just after, but I wasn't doing it because I wanted to get into GameStop or something. But then I picked up like some BlackBerry or whatever too. But I didn't actually get like too badly done on that. Did you engage in a lot of that too? I didn't really maybe go too far back in your TikTok to see if you were like deep heavy in any of the GameStop or stuff.
So, do you want the long answer or the short answer? So,
Okay. Either one.
when I first started investing, I would only buy stocks that I knew, that I understood. That stocks like I bought Microsoft because I played Xbox with my friends. I bought Coca-Cola because I would order a Coke from a restaurant, for example, and I would always think to myself, "Oh, that's so cool! I own that company, and
Right.
I get to to partake in purchasing a company that I own, for example." And I've always stuck with that philosophy where I always invest in things that I know, that I love, that I understand, that I use, that I see people use around me, that I know is real. And it's always been a slow, consistent, and safe growth. And then when all of the meme stuff started to happen, that just went against everything I ever thought.
Sure.
And it was very much not only a shock, but it was a wake-up call that, hey, you can actually have some fun with investing. And that's probably the first time when investing got fun for me, where before it was just dollar cost averaging. Every paycheck that comes in, I put a little bit aside and I build this long-term portfolio. And then I discovered what options were and the power of options trading and what you can do in that space as well. And I thought that was super interesting. But then the GameStop stuff, the short squeeze stuff started to happen. And short squeezes aren't anything new. It's been happening for ever since the stock market started.
On the scale with Wall Street Bets participating.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. On this retail scale, it just blew up.
Coordinated, I guess, also, right?
I had friends make and lose millions of dollars, and I was just sitting on the sideline like, I would never buy anything like that. Like, why would you buy that? Like,
Right.
You're going to buy it and then sell it? And it seemed like something so crazy to me. So I missed the initial wave of GameStop exploding and AMC exploding. And during my content creation phase, I always positioned everything to be educational. And I would talk about trading philosophy and investing philosophy. And I would say like, hey, listen, like you get a job and you work and you get a paycheck and you put 10% away and you grow this long-term portfolio. And then I realized that content kind of gets boring because I said everything I needed to say. Just save up and grow and do all that stuff.
Right. That's
And
what I
then-
think. I guess I'll just cut you off. That's why I always think with like some of the content stuff is like, oh, I have a lot of stuff that I could talk about. But then once I get through all that, I'm like, wait, like maybe like now I need to have ongoing stuff. That's where you see people who do that into NFT stuff always finding new projects and they're always talking about stuff. But then it becomes sort of a little bit of a shell game where it's just like they're not even caring about the next project, but they need that content or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. And to the stock stuff, I started creating like a meme stock challenge where I would take a look at the most talked about stocks on Reddit that day and try to figure out the best place to park some money. So I allocated a percentage of my portfolio for fun investing. and I started creating daily content on Clover Health, for example. And that was another short squeeze potential stock that it did go parabolic at one point, and then ever since that, it's just been shorted and shorted.
That was
and
a whole
shorted
side
and
story
just
I was
went-
never a part of, but I'd always see in the Finery chat that we talk on that, like you'd always mention or bring up the Clove charts, and then people would always sort of jump in on that. But
Yeah, definitely. That was something I would cover every single day. It's very similar to AMC and GameStop, but the only difference is it's a very legitimate company doing very legitimate things, and it was very secondary to the whole meme stock rally. But that's my exposure to the
Cool.
meme and fun side of
And
investing.
then in terms of like, I guess like not to get too much into stocks, I want to get on the NFT side,
sure.
but like, how'd you even like, cause one thing to kind of get into stocks, but like to be able to jump into options and stuff, like you would have had to have some kind of, I guess not background, but yeah, you've been obviously doing this for a good period of time now, like investing for over, you said, it's been like 10 years now? Like how long is it?
Over 10 years, yeah. Probably closer
Crazy.
to 15 years now from
That's
the
the one
beginning.
thing, like this is sort of maybe not even potentially podcast question, but I was always trying to gauge like your sort of age range a little bit too, sort of, right? Because it's like, I can't quite put a finger on it, but I have an idea, but I always just sort of like, because like, I don't know, I'll dox myself. I'm 32, but like, I'm just trying to think about like, yeah, like, are you like, can you give me a range? Are you willing to or no?
Yeah, I can give you a range.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's anywhere from 25 to 30.
Oh, okay, I thought you were gonna say like, oh, anywhere from like 20 to 40 or something. I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I'm
thanks.
100 years old or less.
Yeah. Okay, legit. Yeah.
No, but yeah, no, I've been investing ever since I was a kid. And my dad made me a custodial account because I was underage and kind of guided me in the right direction to, hey, save up your money, invest, keep it in there, and it'll grow over time. And I've been doing that. I've been watching stocks go up and down for over 15 years. And then getting started with the crypto side of things. When Bitcoin was around $300-ish, I started to say, hey, Dad, check this out. This thing's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then he's like, get out of here. Like, what is this Bitcoin stuff? And then I think my journey just started by taking a look at these things and then getting excited at the day trade ability of it. And
That's cool. You got in like so early on, sort of too. I mean, it was on stocks and stuff were on my radar at a certain point in my 20s. I even had like a TD Ameritrade account and stuff. I guess I didn't understand or even like have confidence enough in the markets to know if it was like. And then I guess whole side tangent. I kind of invested heavy in like my dad. He's been big into precious metals. So at the time too, that was right when like 2008 was around. So it was sort of like, oh, you should probably get into like one of these silver companies and stuff. And it didn't do bad. It just didn't like grow at all. Like meanwhile, if you put it into like Apple or Microsoft or like you can kind of pick any company in the last like 10 years and it's sort of been on that trajectory. I mean, I'm not saying it's like you could have predicted that or it's going to continue, but right. It was like,
yeah, definitely. And it goes back to that whole philosophy of picking companies that you know, love, use, understand, see used around you, and companies that you think will do what they're doing now, but better in 10 years. I'm like, I'll play Xbox in 10 years. Me and my friends, we're just always going to be playing Xbox.
Yeah.
And I'm on a Microsoft PC right now. And I think Microsoft continues to do what they're doing.
Microsoft is probably the stock that I'm like most bullish on, really. Because I feel like they have the most.
They're just
like,
so consistent.
Yeah, like they have the infrastructure, the software. Like you just can't replace that seamlessly in any way, right? Like, plus they'll just buy a new company if they start to kind of gain market share anyway and stuff.
Exactly. Right? And I'm super curious to see how they'll eventually get into the crypto space.
Yeah, I guess. That's true. I guess they're probably already doing things like behind the scenes that we don't really know about just yet, eh?
Yeah. Should be super interesting. But yeah, my investing journey kind of started with stocks, and then I've always been involved in crypto ever since it was on my radar. And I would buy and sell Bitcoin when it was like 300 to 500. And I'm like, wow, I'm a really good investor.
That's crazy.
And then
what platforms are you even doing that on? Like, was this Coinbase and stuff or what?
I know it was before Coinbase even existed.
Like it was so brutal
it was like
at a certain point trying to acquire any coins. Like even as early as 2016, like I remember I bought some Ether and stuff, but like I couldn't even like sell it after the fact, or I only could buy like $200 at a time with my credit card.
Yeah.
Like it was,
and like a lot of it was through different online gambling sites, and they would pay in Bitcoin, for example.
Right.
And it was just super sketchy and super weird.
So
and
sketchy.
I didn't want to get a mail, like a check mailed to me, because it was super sketchy stuff, and I'm like, I'll take Bitcoin, and it was through different exchanges and stuff like that, but it was before Coinbase's time. But yeah, Bitcoin around 300 ish, and then Ethereum around $8 ish,
Right.
and then playing around with that. But again, buying Ethereum and then thinking I'm a genius, selling it at like $50 or $100, and like when it hit like $200, I'm like, this thing is so overpriced, and then it all of a sudden became $800, and I'm like, whoa. And then
I think with like Bitcoin and Ethereum too, it's one of those things where you you could maybe have held on anticipating it would kind of get the market share and everything it is now, but I think until 2018, 19, it was so maybe not unproven, but just hadn't even really established it fully to where someone or some government entity could have just wiped it off somehow. But now it seems to be at that threshold where it can't really be taken down, right? But yeah, that's where it's one of those things where if you almost could logically see the case where it wouldn't have gone away, but you could definitely see why in the moment you would have sold, right? Because it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was up so much,
exactly,
and I was younger, and taking a look at that, there's no way I could have looked that far into the future and said this Bitcoin's definitely going to be $100,000.
Yeah, it's definitely cool you have that much experience just investing in these markets and stuff too. Just because it's I find even in the time that I've been just really concentrated the past couple of years, you just really get a whole different mindset or understanding, or even just you get a feel for it, or you see people enter the space and you're like, oh, they're going to go through these same things I went through, and put too much into something or not exit quickly and all these things, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It definitely applies to NFTs too. I think that's almost one of the things you mentioned that kind of, I think, protects you, or maybe protects me even a little bit when we invest in something, is you were saying, you always want to invest in something that you like, or when you're investing in Coca-Cola or the game companies, right? Or just things that one, you like, and yeah, two, you think will actually do well moving forward. Because I find that the projects and stuff that a lot of NFT projects, probably, most all of them end up kind of falling and dropping. But the ones that are almost guaranteed to are the ones where you just buy it because you're thinking oh, someone else will want to buy this one. I don't like it, but someone else wants this though, for sure,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to expand on that, I actually tie in, I throw financials out the window when it comes to NFTs sometimes.
Sure.
And I tap in my marketing brain. So I studied strategic and corporate communication, which is marketing and advertising, business, psychology, sociology, all those things put into one degree. And I took that degree and I went into video production, and I started doing commercials at an ad agency. And I was a producer there, and I would talk to customers and they would tell me about their product or service. And then I would communicate that with our whole marketing creative team, and then create a product or a video or advertisement, social ads, different designs, and give them that material. And then they would go and do some marketing and attract their audience. So to do that, I had to fully understand who's the target audience, their demographics, their psychographics, who they are, what they do, why they do it, why would they be interested in this product and service. And taking that experience and applying it to NFTs has been extremely valuable, because it's very similar. You get an NFT project that comes out, you take a look at it and you say okay, who's the target audience for this thing? What kind of people are going to be interested in this thing? How much Ethereum do those people have to spend? Yeah. And is this marketable? Do they have something cool, unique, new, attractive?
And that's one thing I always think about too, to jump in, is that they have, when they're talking about oh, can people afford it? A lot of these projects, especially when they launch, the floor price is especially in popular ones, it gets up to 0.2, 0.3 pretty quick. That's just roughly, almost $1,000. And if there's a collection with 10,000 items or 5,000, that's a lot to go around for whoever's fan base is collecting those, right? So I think just having that understanding of a real world perspective that most people don't have, because a lot of people will make money in Ethereum and then just have this pool of, not saying most people, but some people, and then they just think oh, other people are going to have this disposable ETH and not care about it and buy these things. And it's no, you got to have some demand down the line too, for people who actually can spend. Yeah, because even with some of the projects I've just recently invested into with NFTs, the Huxley one, I've gotten out of most of my position in that, because I I mostly just wanted to, I want to run, first of all, because like the ETH pump, I just don't really want to be holding too much. But I was just thinking too, like, oh, okay, well, this issue 2 or issue 3, like they're selling for 0.2, but that's like $600, like, and there's 10,000. It's like, okay, how many comic books even sell for that, right? It's different in general because, they'll get burned and they'll be able to turn it into avatars and there might be more stuff down the line, right? But I would, yeah, whenever you compare it to like a real world thing, you're like, oh, okay, especially when, people need to like pay their bills at some point because it's all fun games for like a month or two for people. And then they're like, okay, you know what? Like, I can't stare at this $1,000 JPEG any longer. I'd rather just not be struggling, right? So
yeah, definitely. There comes a point where you continue to stack Ethereum and you continue to grow your wallet size and you keep looking at the ETH number. Oh, I just turned 1 ETH into 2 ETH. Wow, that's great. And then 2 to 4 and then 4 to 10. And it's super cool to see that ETH grow. But as Ethereum starts to slowly climb its way up, you have to start looking at it as dollar values and taking a look at whether you're bullish on Ethereum long term, that's fine. But you still have to take a look at when should I be taking profits? How can I exit some positions? How can I secure some things so I can make and continue to make better and better decisions as new opportunities present themselves?
And what I'm noticing with like, you see this sometimes with like the blue chips now is that even with an ETH pump, they don't necessarily do too bad. Sometimes they even do a bit better because it's like, I feel like the people who are into these blue chips, especially the ones that like cost, upwards of 5 ETH, like they probably even make money when ETH and Bitcoin pumps. So they can probably just not even have to sell their blue chip NFT, or if anything, they can maybe buy more or buy another. I don't know if that's how it goes, but it seems like there is sort of that dynamic where, okay, like the bad projects or the middling projects, they all start to crash when ETH pumps. But then there's that, like, I think there's still a little bit of a dip for some blue chips when ETH pumps, but I don't know if it's as severe unless it's like a huge pump, right? But I think maybe that's where the climate might be changing too. I've been noticing even when I commented the other day on the forum about when you got the whitelist and so Jack did for that project, like it seems like now the whitelists are just basically being allocated towards these projects where there's like blue chip holders, which sort of makes sense because it's like January, February, we had a lot of these whitelists go and people would just flip them and then, these projects would just, floor would crash out. And so it just wasn't even working well for those ones. And so now I think it's like, okay, now that the NFT space is maturing, we're going to like, you need to secure yourself a blue chip in order to even get on these whitelists, maybe moving forward, or at least the good ones, right? And like, yeah, in some ways, they just the good ones print money. Like if you had like even the Kongs ones, the two that I think you recently got on, or Jack got on recently, got the what was the I forget the one actually. I'll remember in a minute. But anyway, yeah, you go on.
So what I was gonna say is, as an NFT holder, you always ask yourself, okay, why am I holding this thing? And the Bored Ape Yacht Club, for example, is currently sitting at all-time highs, not in Ethereum value, but in dollar value. And people will need to want to lock in profits at some point. And you can only hold a picture of a monkey for so long. And they came out with their ape airdrop.
Yeah.
So these people some people secured hundreds and thousands of dollars. And that allows them to now comfortably continue to hold their ape, even though their ape is up thousands of % since when they bought it. And as a CyberKong holder, for example, if you own a Genesis Kong, you get paid 10 bananas every day. And the price of that banana can be converted to ETH.
Sorry to cut you off. That's pretty cool, right? Like, and that's why I even went like you considered listing and stuff, and I can definitely understand that. But at the same time, I'm thinking like, if you really do just hold on to this, not only will it probably pump back to 8 ETH and stuff around that range soon. Like I don't want to say that will happen 100%, but I think it would just looking at the history. And then all the things you just get just for holding on to it in general, like the whitelist and the bananas, like that'll probably cover your margin
pays for itself.
Right, at least
just another. It goes back to my original point of people need a reason to hold an NFT, and the reason always isn't for the NFT to increase in value, because obviously if you have a Bored Ape, you don't want to sell it. So if they do an airdrop, for example, you just got your initial investment plus profits back and you can hold comfortably. And with these apes, for example, the CyberKongs, for example, they the Genesis Kongs yield the bananas. The babies yield those shards. And those shards can be turned into charms. And there's a whole secondary market and demand for those charms. So my baby just sitting there is generating a potential, I don't want to say passive income, but it's another source of ETH that I just hold the baby and it just does it automatically.
Yeah. And do you get like the banana token like sent to your MetaMask, sort of same thing? Like it shows up like banana, like 200 or 100 or
yeah, pretty much. So I don't have a Genesis Kong. There are people in our Finery chat who do have a Genesis Kong. Those things are upwards of 60 ETH right now.
Right, yeah.
And those yield 10 bananas every day.
I thought your baby got 10 as well. Oh, sorry, maybe you were saying that.
No, the baby gets the shards. They get shards that can be turned into charms, and then the charms can be turned into one of three of these game components. So the Cyberkongs have this game, the Play to Collect, and you send your 3D VX Kong out to collect Kongium, and there's a whole prize pool of banana. It's a really cool game. You should definitely check it out. But the babies yield something that help in that game. Okay. And there's a whole demand for them.
Nice. You also had like some expected news for the babies. I think was that this month, or is that still upcoming?
The expected news was the game and the utility and the shards. And it did initially get a lot of excitement, but a lot of people were already holding their babies. I think there's only like 150 babies listed for sale right now. And it's just super interesting to see less than 4% of the holders have it listed because they're all just claiming their shards and collecting and then selling the charms.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. When you got in, like, how did you get in, like, out at the, that the whole thing, like, buy the rumor, sell the news or whatever. Did you kind of buy the news on that one a bit or no?
So with Cyberkongs, it's a really interesting thing where it's buy the rumor, buy the news.
Oh, okay.
Where
maybe it's like bored a bit too. Yeah.
Yeah, they just continue to perform and they continue to surprise.
When you look at their market volume and stuff too.
Yeah, their game, it was never on the radar. It was, nobody knew they were even working on it. And they just said, hey, here's the game. And when I bought it, Ethereum was super cheap. So the Ethereum value of the baby was ranging anywhere from 6 to 8. It kept bouncing back and forth between that range. I bought mine for 7.7,
and it was even like 8 like a month before that, right? So it's not like it hadn't like already even gone down.
Oh yeah.
So it's like you were kind of at that point of like, oh, this is like at the bottom.
It was a safe buy. Yeah, it was a safe buy with the expected absolute low in my head of 4. So we haven't hit the absolute low yet. But yeah, babies at one point, their peak was, I believe, 19.
I think 5 would be like a strong like holding point, if anything, Not that you even go to that point. I'm just saying, like, I think like that's a number of people are, hard to break through maybe, but
yeah. And it all kind of depends on their the Genesis Kong's floor as well, which is currently around 60.
So what, like, I guess I'd probably know the answer. Like, I was gonna say, what got you into Cyberkongs? Was it because like was Jack or someone else involved first potentially, or did you actually discover it first and then kind of get everyone else on board a little bit?
So one of my buddies, Anthony, who's over on Finery as well, he owns a Genesis Kong, and I believe he bought it for around 100 Ethereum.
Okay.
And he started to talk about their community, and I started to look into their community, and I absolutely fell in love with their community. They have a lot of really, 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 really smart people constantly building. And they're the quiet ones. So the Bored Ape Yacht Club is loud. They're out there. They're hype. They're very good at marketing, essentially. And the crypto punks, they just have been the OGs in the space.
The crypto punks, or the sort of cyberpunks, you mean?
Cyberpunks. Did I say crypto punks? Yeah. No, cyberpunks.
Oh, okay. I thought, because we were just talking about the cyberkongs.
No. Crypto punks, the actual punks.
Okay.
So they have been the OG in the space. That's why everybody loves their project. And even the Bored Apes acquired them. So that's like one entity now.
Yeah.
What other project has a floor price of upwards of 60 ETH?
No, except for like the rare like artist ones that have like 100.
No, like a full collection.
Exactly.
A community. it would be CyberKongz. So they call it the holy trinity of like the top tier NFTs, and CyberKongz is the quiet number 3. And they don't do much marketing. All they do in the background is just continue to build really cool, innovative applications and different use cases and back-end technology stuff that's way over my head. But they're the very quiet ones who are just building really cool stuff.
Nice.
So that's what attracted me to that.
And it seems like they're obviously just going to be like really well positioned, like in the NFT space moving forward, just with like, you know, how they've already just got so much like going, I don't know, in general, like for like the different projects they got lined up and the games and everything. And there's even the metaverse ready stuff, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. They're one of the biggest Sandbox land holders. They're partnered with Sandbox as well. So we'll see what kind of games that they develop on the Sandbox.
Cool. So quick jump to the Finery. So I'm in the Wall Street Stonks Finery. Is there any other like groups even on Finery that you're currently like chatting as well, or at least joined into their like? Because I know there's more like on the Finery. There's multiple groups, right, or investors.
Yeah, there's a lot of great creators on Finery. Right now, Finery. I actually joined Finery during their like early beta or even late alpha phase, and I gave them a lot of back and forth and critique and criticism and feedback to get the user perspective and kind of help their team understand what I'm looking for. And then they were kind of building on top of that and building what I think is a cooler Discord. It's a place to come to learn, and you can share charts, you can watch trades and stuff like that. I really wanted a platform where I could share my trades live. I didn't want to create another Discord channel, for example. I think there's way too many of those, and I can't even keep up with all the Discords that I'm in. Yeah. But there are a lot of great creators on Finery, and I think now that like you saw their whole redesign and update.
Yeah.
Did I just freeze?
Oh yeah. Restart. There,
I'm back. So you saw their whole redesign and update on Finery. They are launching what they're calling the Finery V2, or like their refreshed Finery page. And Jack can talk more about this as well. Yeah. But
I even just like what I've seen so far on the Finery site, like, man, there's so much like involved in making that. I couldn't imagine like the behind the scenes of that sort of thing. Like I say, I've done like web development stuff before. Just the whole UI and making everything work and having to do it all in real time too, because it's not like, you know, it's all like instantaneous. When you post, it shows up, and you have to manage that, and then different devices. Like,
they're doing a great job
to get it done. Like, take as much time, because I know it'll like. That's one thing I see about people who get into NFT space too, and this will maybe be like a quick jump even to Crypto Zoo, is like I just see people who like want to start a project, and then like usually they're really successful in business or YouTube or whatever, and they think like, okay, I can translate that to like, we'll make this sick app, and like I'll just pay money to do it, and we'll get it done. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like thinking, oh man, being able to pull something off like that, especially with the Crypto Zoo, when we were involved in that project, they were really focusing on like the marketplace and actually getting this BSC to ETH chain system going and all that. Yeah, there's a lot of drama with that. So with Crypto Zoo, I guess I kind of jumped this Finery topic because I had more questions on that, but I'll just go to the zoo right now. Is like, how did you first even discover that project and stuff? Because like I think we both kind of got in around the same time, maybe.
Yeah, so I saw on Logan Paul's podcast that he was coming out with this NFT project.
So you also watched like the Impulsive too, then, or at least like
sometimes very randomly.
Sure.
And I just happened to see that clip, or I saw maybe that whole podcast episode. I don't remember, but I remember him talking about this NFT project, and I'm like, that's going to be really interesting, solely because of this guy's marketing power.
And keep going out. Some people have like some pretty big hangups with Logan Paul, which I find kind of interesting, because it's like you don't really even know the person that well. It's like you just have such strong opinions. Like, it's not even bad if you have an opinion, but it's just like they're so set in their ways before sometimes they'll even. Or they'll just like they don't really necessarily think that the podcast maybe even has as much maybe substance to it, or they might like downplay some of his like success in at least like with marketing or whatever, right? And it's
Yeah.
just it's hard. Like,
He's an entertainer, and
Yeah.
with entertainment, a lot of people are going to love you, a lot of people are going to hate you, and whatever happens happens.
course,
but and I saw that clip where he was talking about his NFT project and how it's super cool and all this stuff, and it kind of resonated with me and it clicked with me, and I went on YouTube to see if anybody's talking about it, and there was nobody talking about it, and I'm like, huh. Could I be the first content creator to talk about CryptoZoo right now? So I started to create videos and I started to make content talking about it. I got involved in their community. I started talking in chat, learning more about it. And then everybody just really liked my updates on CryptoZoo.
That was the NFT heyday too. And especially when you were putting out those regular content videos too with CryptoZoo, because like those projects when they are first coming out in August or whatever, they almost seemed a lot more like permanent than like the projects do now, because there's so much more projects now. So at the time when those came out, you're like, oh, these ones will be like the winners. It
was slower, huh? Yeah, there wasn't like that many things to look forward to in the NFT space. Like, when CryptoZoo announced they're going to be coming out, there wasn't really much else in the space to be excited about.
And like, I think until I saw over time all these floor prices dropping and stuff, I always just assumed oh, so many people are involved in this project, like they'll want it to continue in the floor or remain or grow or whatever. Like it depends on the project sometimes, but yeah, it was just so dramatic how some of it like just changed that suddenly or whatever, right?
Yeah, so he announced it. I got involved. I started creating content. I got into their Telegram chat and I started talking. And then I eventually became a moderator in the Telegram chat somehow. And then I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I feel like I'm a part of a really cool community. And then things started to just get slower, and then some FUD started to come around. And
I was there for that whole cycle too, by the way, with like GBK, everyone, like, the whole shebang, right?
It was wild, and it was just really fun and entertaining for me to just watch everything unfold. And I'm like, wow, this is super interesting. And then during that whole time, I was just learning more and more about NFTs, and I'm like, well, if they're going to take a while to create what they want to create, which I think is awesome what they're trying to create, I'm going to go hop over and see what other projects there are. And I'm going to put my ETH to work. And that's exactly what I did. And because I couldn't sit in that chat all day long and just wait. So what I wanted to do is hop around, see what else is going on. I'm still in their Discord. I still hop in there randomly and say, hey, what's up? Everybody gets all excited. And then... yeah, I mean, they're slowly coming out with all of the things that they promised they were coming out with, and we'll see what happens. I still have an egg, and I still have 2 NFTs from them.
Yeah, it could have like, I mean, I'm not necessarily holding out anytime soon, but like a good resurgence if like they just get it all together, and then Logan just does come back on board, because I think he is just like, you know what, if you guys one day get this thing up and rolling, I'm back. But like,
I'm sure I'm a business owner, and I understand what it's like to need to delegate things as well. And for him, he has so many things. He has so many things every single day.
He's and like, guys, I've made more off Will Women than I have off.
Yeah, dude. He's not sitting there constantly building for CryptoZoo. He put a team together and said, hey guys, do whatever you need to do to get this project up. This is my vision. Give me some status updates. And I'm sure the team is working hard, and then they give him updates and say, hey, Logan, this is what we're doing. This is the current state. What do you think? And then if everything comes together as planned and when planned, he'll do some marketing for it, which I think will be great for the newbie NFT retail side of things.
He'd probably like it too, because he'd probably just get in on it, buy some of the NFTs, and then like let it pump or something if that was the case, right? So
yeah. So yeah, nice. That's where CryptoZoo's at.
Yeah, CryptoZoo is sort of like a bit of a ride for me too, because I first got into NFTs probably because of Logan Paul and Impulsive and stuff, because like I already had Bitcoin. So this is my theory where people how they even get into NFTs in the first place is like, you can't get into NFTs until you get into like crypto first, I think, right? Like, because you just happen to have sometimes like that's what happened to me, is I had some Bitcoin like just lying around, I guess you could say. It wasn't even like appreciating at the time I bought it in 2021. At that point it just peaked, and then it was like, okay, if anything, we're holding our value a bit. But yeah, I was just sort of thinking like, I just kept watching these floor prices and stuff, and it's cool with OpenSea being able to see the activity. It's like a whole new thing where you don't never had something like this in the past where you could actually sort of see, commodities and how much they're trading. I guess you can see it with stocks to some degree, but not with the same visuals and who's buying and like all that. So it was just so appealing. And then I couldn't ignore it some days. You just see like, oh, the floor price is this one day. And the next day it was like, oh, it's gone up again. And it's like, if I just bought it then and I thought it, okay. So when I first started out, I had two projects that I sort of like were on my radar, probably because of Logan Paul. Fortunately, so the two were Wool to Women, and that would have been a nice one to just sort of like totally just get right into. And then the other one was Incognito, because Logan Paul bought 40 Incognitos, and that was right around the time that he got the Wool to Women too. It was like the same week. He didn't even tweet about it yet, so I was like, oh, okay, he's going to tweet about it soon, and then he'll like, he bought 40 of them. Why wouldn't you tweet about it, right? Like, it seemed like it was such a, like, so many things were going for that project that, like, for it to not even have kind of really lived up to any of its potential it's really kind of surprising, and still in hindsight. But yeah, it was just right, because I figured like, okay, like sooner or later, even his brother owned Aid, and like other people like, so yeah, and also too, I thought the floor prices were a bit more permanent then too, because I actually got in and I probably could have sold at a slight profit, like not much, but like it did pump a little bit after I bought, but I definitely didn't get in at mint price. I didn't even know what mint price really was at the time. I was like, oh, this is the price, and this is kind of, yeah. And I actually really liked the World Women collection. I think I actually was focused on that before Incognito, but they were all going for like 1.3, 1.4 Ethereum, which like, was literally at the time all my kind of crypto that I had. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
And it's not like I didn't have the confidence or conviction, but you're like, do I want to put it all in one basket? And like Incognito wasn't cheap. Like I was still dropping like at the time, like $1,000 a piece on one of these, right? So it's not like I was like, oh, I'm going for like the penny stock or something, right? I thought like, okay, it's at least whatever. But yeah, didn't totally pan out. And I even had a chance to re-enter World Women later. So what happened though is then I got into CryptoZoo. And then again, like I wasn't like totally naive. Like there's some people who are a lot like worse in the space, but yeah, you just don't understand the space. Like at the time, when I got into CryptoZoo, I didn't really expect to, because like first they had the BSC drop, right?
Yep.
So I didn't even really know or want to get involved in that. And then suddenly it was like, oh, we're having the the ETH egg drop, and I was like, oh, I can get in on that though. So I went up OpenSea, and you see everyone flipping them from like, I guess they minted them and then they were either selling them right away for 0.1 or 0.3, and then I was actually at like my family's cottage at the time, and it sucked because like they didn't have good internet or anything. So I was having to buy it pretty much on my phone, because I couldn't even buy it on like the laptop we had there, because I couldn't get my MetaMask logged in on that laptop, because I didn't have my secret phrase. I had my password, but I don't have my secret phrase.
Yeah.
So it was like the most stressful moment for me to try to even get some of these eggs on the market, because I was on the slow internet and like trying to get it when it's like this hectic time. Anyways, I ended up securing like 3. And then, then like all that chaos over the next 2 months, I had to kind of like wait, just sort of seeing like what was going on. In the end though, it did actually pan out for me. I'm not sure if you actually knew if you actually were around the Discord or whatever when like the reveals and stuff started happening, but thankfully like I got lucked out. So I ended up hatching a blobfish. So
oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was still even like, didn't even know how to 100% play that at the time, but like I waited a week and then I ended up selling it in Ethereum. And it was like, I somehow lucked out so much on that one in terms of like timing and everything. Like I sold it for 5.5 ETH. It's still my biggest flip to this day. And like, it was like, okay, now I got like a good pool to kind of work with again, like, because it was sort of a little bit devastating too, because like ETH I think was Bitcoin was starting to pump again too, as like CryptoZoo was falling and Incognito was middling and everything, and I was like, oh, this is brutal, right?
Just losing everywhere. Yeah, that was a good flip. Yeah.
Right. Oh man, and at the time too, I was even like, I was still sort of hopeful for CryptoZoo. I was like, is it worth it to hold this at all? But then I was just like, no, I'm just to see if I can list it. Yeah, so that worked out. But if not that, like I probably would have had a whole different trajectory in like the NFT space, because like I've been sort of playing with that ETH pool and working with that like since, and like I haven't put in anything new into the space, and that's where I kind of been able to be comfortable with it all, because it's like, okay, I'm basically playing with earnings I've had in the past or even just recovered from. And yeah, that's sort of been my ongoing thing, but it like just totally lucked out. And that's why I think like I was fortunate that I was able to kind of pay for my learning experience just through like a lucky mint reveal. Again, at the same time, if I had actually bought a better project like a World Woman instead of Incognito, it would have just appreciated on its own or whatever, right? But like,
if you could have held it, yeah.
If I could, well, if I think I could have held it because I would have held it to 3, not 10. I would have held it to like 2.5 or something, and I'm like sick,
yeah, exactly.
But even still, that would have been better than holding Incognito right now. I can't even sell them, dude. Like it's gotten bad. It was at at least a couple months ago when it's like 0.08 or almost close to 1, and now down to 0.03. I can't sell it for 0.031 now. Like it's the worst project. I go into like the Discord. I don't want to keep harping on them at this point. But yeah, I just sort of like see the updates and stuff. I don't know if I can sum up what the biggest issue with that problem was. I think it was just the guy behind it just dropped the ball. But anyway.
I think so. Yeah. I actually think that was my first NFT purchase. Was an Incognito.
I almost feel like
either that or CryptoZoo. I don't remember.
Even though I probably shouldn't at all, I still somehow feel like somewhat responsible for maybe you getting into that. Like I didn't actually like talk to you or mention or do anything, but like just because I was like sick, like because like I was in the CryptoZoo with my Incognito like for a while.
You had one.
Yeah.
And Ben Roth had one.
Yeah.
And I would look at that and I'm like, this is cool. I don't get influenced much by people though, because I don't care if anybody has anything.
Right.
I then hop into the project to see what it's about, and it looked awesome. And I'm like, dude, this is sick.
It has so much
6K profile picture. I'm like, dude, this is awesome. This is so cool.
And I heard a lot of reasons. Sorry to cut you off again. I heard a lot of reasons people don't even necessarily didn't want to work with the project or it didn't really go on the right trajectory. So they just didn't like the guy behind it. So people wouldn't even collab with us and do things because they're like, yeah, we can't work with Dynasty. He's just too much he's too difficult, or whatever it was, right? So that was part of the interesting. Yeah.
That is very interesting. But yeah, the overall project seemed really cool. And that's what convinced me of it. And at the time, a really cool profile picture was pretty much all you could really expect from an NFT project. And then when utility came around and that became the new hype, and then people started to ask, why would I pay $1,000 for this NFT? That's when the floor price started to drop. And then that's when projects needed to really start to deliver. And then I think the coolest thing that Incognito did was send one to space, which at the time was like, whoa, what? But then now it's like, I don't care if it's in space. What does this do for me? And what
also I didn't like about it is and I think with Web3 you have to play it a little bit Wild West. It doesn't necessarily it's easy for me to say as the guy who's just buying into it and won't have to deal with the repercussions of any of this stuff later. But I feel like some of the stuff they were way too worried about securities. They didn't want to launch their icon token because they thought it would be an issue. And they're like, look, we're not going to do what these other projects are doing because just watch, they're going to get hammered later. And it's like, okay, well, their floor is pumping and ours not, because you're not doing any of these things. So I kind of rather you just get an icon token out and just figure it out later. Again, it's easier for me to say because I'm not going to deal with SEC shit later if that does happen. But I didn't think that was necessarily a valid concern anyway. But little things like that where it's just maybe too many excuses instead of solutions and stuff also.
Yeah, definitely. But that was a good experience for me. I learned a lot through that and then was able to just continue to grow into the NFT space. And then we're here now.
Yeah. And so I feel like it was maybe even December that I joined Finery and then I started to kind of slowly maybe even turn you a little bit into an NFT degen a bit, I guess, into some of the flipping behavior. I feel like your trades got a bit more active.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's good to have somebody to bounce ideas from. And before meeting you, I would just do a lot of research and take a look at the projects and then start saying oh, do I want to... I was in the building phase of my portfolio and I would buy something with the intention of holding it for a long time. Similar approach to how I did with stocks, essentially dollar cost averaging into NFTs and growing into projects that interested me. But then I started to see massive potential in flipping and being able to have conversations with you and Jack and Tim and Roger and pretty much everybody else inside of Finery and saying hey, what do you guys think about this project? And then everybody gives their input. And going from there, it really took me to that whole flipping mentality where I discovered the power of, hey, if I buy this thing, it could definitely appreciate like 1,000%. And then with that mentality, I'm like, okay, I gotta have my actual portfolio where I'm keeping things that I like, but I'm not going to sleep on the flippability of some things as
Yeah.
well. So
Oh, for sure. I know. I have to keep clearing my throat, I think. Yeah, I realized that, like, so as I was coming into Finery and stuff too, what happened was I was always on different Twitter spaces and stuff too, even on like Telegram for a bit when that was, not Telegram, what's the one that Chatter, not, what's the one, Clubhouse, thinking
yeah,
like Chatter or something. Yeah, like I was on that for even until like November, which is like who's on Clubhouse in November, right? But I was like, oh, just to see who's talking about Bitcoin or whatever. And then like Twitter Spaces, I found out about like the Nifty Alpha show, which I always share about in the Finery and stuff. And they like, I think with like when with these shows and these alpha groups and stuff, like I can't listen to them if I don't actually like the hosts or like if they're not entertaining, because it's like
true.
that's part of why I like the space and stuff too. And if like they either take it too seriously or sometimes they're just kind of like not genuine, like they're just too hyped about a project. You're like, oh, like you're just trying to hype it up because you're a part of it. But this was like the first like space where these guys like didn't really have any attachment to these projects, but like still realistically wanted to get yeah, like just get on these good collections. And so from that, I was able to get like this good constant feed. It was sort of like, it's also still my primary kind of alpha source in a sense, but like I do have to do so much filtering from them and stuff. Like even like whenever I post something into Finery, like there's maybe 10 projects I wouldn't post to Finery from that group or something, right? Because it's either a bad price point that they want to get in at, or I don't believe in the project, or whatever it is, right? And then some of them I've missed out on some good plays because of that. But yeah, like that's sort of been my strategy is like, oh, now I've been able to find out about these new like projects, and just I've gotten a more realistic view on it from them and everything. So like before, I just didn't really like, I wasn't getting in on projects early enough. Like I'd probably get in on them like a few days, like a week after they minted out, because I would just find out about them on OpenSea. I wouldn't know about them from IC Tools, but like they would always just source them in the Discord before and stuff. So that changed a lot for me as well. But then yeah, it was nice just being able to then go share it on Finery and then get extra feedback, or even just kind of like get other people involved too, just in a different space, or even just
we're in it together. Yeah,
exactly, yeah. So yeah, it was a cool like transition, and then we just I think started going pretty nuts in like December or January and stuff too, right? With like
I feel like we have a little army of people who are constantly looking at the markets and seeing what's new and what's going on, and where the best places to potentially park some ETH would be. And I feel like we're getting to a good place where Jack is one of the best devs I've ever seen, and he can take a look at something and tell you if it's a scam in like 2 seconds. He's like, "Nah, this thing sucks,"
Sure.
or be able to exploit something, for example, even that. So he can take a look at stuff.
I can tell like who has, I wouldn't say who's like more level headed or anything, but like who has like sort of a more like down to earth or whatever, like kind of understanding of the spaces and stuff. So yeah, that's partly also why I do like also just sharing stuff with you and stuff in particular, because I just know that you're sort of on a similar level, even in terms of like you like long-term investing in good projects versus like you need that quick flip, although you do like flipping like some of the blue chips, but that's sort of a different than just like investing in something that the floor is going to.
It's all about spotting value. And
right.
One of my best trades was when the markets started to just implode, and there's a lot of geopolitics and tensions all around the world, especially with like things like Russia and Ukraine and whatnot. And as news would come out, crypto would react. And for the first time, NFTs did not hedge crypto, and they both started to crash. And I saw the Bored Ape Kennel Club started to plummet. And I took a look at their average price was anywhere from like 8 to 10 Ethereum. And the floor just instantly went from 8 to about 5.5. And I'm like, whoa, that's a Bored Ape ecosystem NFT. That should not be 5. And I took a look at it, and that's when I realized the floor price is what you can buy at, not what you can sell at. And it was a race to the bottom. Everybody was trying to sell what they had to liquidate for some reason. I'm not sure why. And I couldn't get one at 5.5, but I think I got one at like six something, 6 ETH.
Right.
And I held it for like 3 days, not even, and it bounced right back. And it's plays like that where you can spot value, where you can buy the blood, where you can identify, hey, that's not what the price should be, and you can execute a nice flip on something of value. But
especially for those like the secondary collections, I definitely heard that before with the Bored Ape Kennel Club is like, whenever you see Bored Apes or Mutants pump, that's when like you get in the Bored Apes, because the kennel, because they're about to pump just right next to it sort of too. But that's definitely true about just like noticing those trends and stuff, because I'll see when people, like especially after a mint, they'll just start selling out right away, and I definitely get caught in those waves too, where it's like, oh crap, like okay, if we're just going to zero soon, I'm just going to get out right away. But that's even what happened recently with the Women from Venus play that I had. It was brutal, that one. Not brutal, but like, because I made money, but it was also just like I bought 2 pre-reveals after I already flipped like 2 mints, so I was already in the green. And then one of the pre-reveals I immediately like listed for the price I bought it at, which was like 0.15, and then it kept dropping all the way to 0.1, because like people were just like selling like off the ones they didn't want. And then immediately after, they just started to climb again. It climbed all the way to 0.2, so it went from 0.15 down to 0.1 and like up to 0.2, and this is all in the course of like an hour, like to 2 hours. Like, so if I had maybe held on a bit longer, I could have, instead of selling at a loss, I could have actually profited slightly, which is kind of crazy, because it's like, oh, I could have had 0.08 difference from like the small cap. It'd be different if it was like a big market cap project, because those fluctuations are normal. But I just like, damn it, I really sold into like that local dump right there, right? But there's other projects where I maybe waited a bit too long, and then of course it does actually just continue to dump. But it's never really that sudden. I think so. Like, you need to kind of get an understanding of when, like, what's actually happening.
Yeah, definitely. There's a big difference between like a slow rug and a quick dump, and it all depends on expectations, news, catalysts, and the current overall macro market. So
and just a side note, I had to get out of Women from Venus, not even because like ETH is pumping and the floor is dropping, but like, man, some of these projects, they have a great start, but I don't know, like just really little details I can't hang around with. You don't even get those right. Like, I went to their OpenSea page, and like so many people have already mentioned this in their Discord, but like the link to the website is still the mint page, and then you can't even navigate to like the website from the mint page. So it's like your whole OpenSea thing, they can't even go to your. It's just such a, like, you must be like just partying with the money you just got in. Like, she was already doing well, so I don't think she needed like that to party more. But it's just like, oh, okay, I can see where this project's going. Like, it might have legs in the 1 year if you actually pay attention to it. But you can definitely spot a solid team with a plan, with experience, versus just somebody who's like, I'm gonna make an NFT project and then do some good marketing and then it sells out. And some people, like, they don't, like, I don't always need like them to be that present in the Discord. Sometimes it's even like a layoff approach can be good, but it was like, oh no, she's way too hands off. Like, this is actually like, oh, you're really not here at all. So definitely, a bit concerning in that. You brought up another point I just kind of forgot though. But anyway, I also move on to something else now. This is good. We're almost at an hour, so I won't keep you too much longer, because we can even like do another conversation later too. I don't,
Sure, whatever.
So I guess just to sort of like reflect on things, like in terms of like the plays that we have done or the mistakes that we have made, like what do you think that we did wrong the most on some of our plays, if any? You had to sort of think about, like, I guess it depends on which ones, right? But like, it
depends on your goals. It depends on what you want.
When we look at paperhands.gg and some of the worst offenders from that, like, which are because like there's just certain projects, like, whether it's, this is for me speaking, like if I held on to either the creeps or like, if I did buy a World of Women or what was another one even. But I'm just thinking, like, Is it?
Yeah,
Is there
great
something
question. So, a few things. For example, you were the one who showed me Creeps, right?
Yeah.
You sent it in Finery. I took a look at that, and I'm like, this is really cool. I want one. This is really cool. I don't remember why I didn't buy one. And I knew, everything inside of me knew that this is a solid project. It's gonna go up. And I don't remember why I didn't buy one. And I think the biggest problem is I always get analysis paralysis, where I take a look at something and I say like, okay, dude, I could totally buy 10 of these right now. And then with the intention of flipping or making some free and holding on to it forever. But I always justify like, oh, you know what? Maybe I should keep the ETH for maybe something else. I don't know. And I just get stuck in my head and I miss out on something like that. And it happened again not too long ago with that one project that is killing it right now.
It happened with me with 2 projects recently. Sorry.
I don't know how to pronounce it. The Kiwami.
Oh, Kwame.
Kwame. So I didn't share this in Finery. I saw a lot of wallets. If you want to pull it up, it's probably the top. Yeah, of course it is. So this thing,
the one I just did, of course.
Yeah, open it up on OpenSea. So I saw this thing trading. I saw a lot of wallets that I track, absolutely full minting this thing and buying it when it was about 0.1 or less. And if you click on activity real quick, so if you look at that. So
it's still pumping. Wow.
Yep.
Like
yep. So scroll up all the way. I saw this thing probably around 324, 325, 326. And I was watching it and I'm like, oh, the floor price is really cheap. I don't think they have some good marketing or something. The art is awesome. I think
this style of art is killing it lately, eh?
I'm like, this is very marketable. I think this is going to be a really cool project. It's very clean. And I don't know why I didn't buy. I think I wanted to buy 2 or 3 of them, and there was like 0.1 or 0.15, and I didn't buy it. And then it just skyrocketed out of nowhere. I have no idea why.
They don't even have traits up right now. Eh? Huh. Like it's not.
Yeah. So it's crazy that I look at projects. I'm able to identify this is a great project, and then I skip out on it. So I think that's one of my biggest problems is not just.
Like I need to convictions kind of a little bit.
I need to just do more.
Sure.
I need to stop like sitting in my head and just like analyzing things too much. Another one of my biggest problems, if you take a look at paper hands,
yeah.
Please do. Yeah.
I guess I'll bring up my account though, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. But if you, I look at paper hands quite often, and it's to remind myself that, hey,
here's my Crocs.
Here, oh man, yeah. So mine's a Zuki, and you were there when I called out a Zuki.
Yeah.
See, even you had a good trade here. Let's take a look at this. So you bought a Croc for 0.08, and then you sold it less than a day
but dude,
for 0.13.
This is similar to Creeps though, where you were saying though about like, oh, if you know you should spend to buy more. Like this was on my project on radar for like for a month at least. I bought even one like 2 weeks before I bought the next one even. So like, even though it says I've only held it for like 0.1 days, I've actually held it for like maybe a bit longer than that. It actually reminded me a lot of the Mechaverse, I think is the apes one, right? Yeah, the Ugaverse, that was what it was. And in terms of just like the whole layout and stuff too. And then I think I saw some like, notable people buying in. Like I think over the course of like weeks, I would see like people minting 10 from like, account with that had like an ENS name to it or like a good Twitter handle and stuff. But yeah, I just sort of felt like, I don't know, like these are ones where easier in hindsight to kind of know about. But also I remember I was in the Nifty Discord, and it's funny, dude, there's this one guy who was like totally fudding like the Acropolis, and it was brutal. Like not brutal, but like seeing someone who doesn't understand what can make something pump and who's just actively trying to FUD it for no reason. Like it doesn't even matter if you FUD it or not, but like he was basically, his whole thing was, okay, look at the unique owner count. You know how many people are going to have to sell theirs? Like, you're not going to be able to sell yours once it's done. It's like, and I was just like, and I replied to the guy, and I was like, oh, it looks like we got a unique expert, person here, right? And he's just like, oh, okay, like, how about you do the math, sneaker kid? The people need to do all this before they can make a profit. I'm just like, and he was at like mentioning the house, being like, yeah, don't get into this, like, don't. And it was just funny because like once it started to pump, he's like, what? Like, how'd this happen? And now it's like 10x, and it's funny too. I don't know, this is a whole side tangent, but I remember seeing him in the Discord recently again also. And like, he was about to fall for like a DM scam where he was like about to like maybe like do a trade for someone who's going to like give him something and not actually give him something. And it was like,
yeah,
these are the type of people who like are scrutinizing my logic.
You're exposing yourself to that.
And even just like his
stimuli
avatar and everything. I'm like, that's what I said. It's like, I need to like retreat to like a fine area where I know I'm not talking to some like 22-year-old who just, I don't know, like, just thinks they understand math. That's the one thing. If someone ever talks about like unique owners too, and says that's the like their determining factor about like whether they feel bullish on a project, I'm just sort of like, it's not as significant as you think, or at least not necessarily like for you to always have that much like strong feelings about it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. But even taking a look at your paper hands,
bring that up.
If I saw that is a fantastic trade.
Sure.
You killed it on that trade. That's a almost 100% trade.
I wasn't even bitter about this one either.
No, that's great.
Bitter about other ones.
And that's the thing where I'm realizing more and more. One of the biggest things that we're missing out on is the longer term holds, and it's you bought it for 0.08 and you sold it for 0.13. If you had multiple of them, you could have kept one for free. And I think that's my biggest takeaway as I continue to grow in this NFT space. If I'm going to flip things, I also need to hold things. And it also goes back to stocks and my investing philosophy in general. Because I can share my screen right now too for my paper hands. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So you've paper handed a total of 18 ETH. Now, what does that mean? That means I've bought things and I've sold things quickly, and then they continue to run up. Every single time I've sold something, not 100% of the time, but it's most of the time for a profit, break even, or slight loss. And my biggest L was a Zuki, which is not an L at all. I made about $2,000 or so in less than 2 days, which is fantastic if you think about it. And I bought it pre-reveal. I thought the art was cool. I thought the marketing was cool. I thought the concept was cool. And I bought it because it looked like quality. And I actually sold pre-reveal above the floor price. So I listed my bean. It was a bean before it revealed. I listed it, and I think the floor was around 2.6. Somebody bought it for 3.
Yeah.
And to me, I was on top of the world.
It went out, and just to cut in, I just feel like to most people, like these, like as much as like these, like you have a good conviction and understanding of how this will play out, but these are also pretty bold plays with like these buy-ins and stuff at like for like a pre-reveal too, right? Because that's the other thing.
Oh yeah.
Like you have to have, because you did that both for Azuki and for the Karafuru one, right?
Yeah, the Karafuru, yeah.
Yeah. But like it
Which totally, we can talk about that too. But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, this was a huge investment.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put $8,800 into something I don't feel comfortable in. I felt comfortable in Azuki.
And it's also because you saw people like that you knew, well-connected people buying in, right? That was like,
oh yeah, I saw big names buying into it, which was an extra confirmation that, hey, this might be actually something cool. I saw the volume. It just did not stop. People were constantly trading it. And I believe it's one of the highest traded NFTs in history. People just keep buying and selling it.
I remember you pointing that out to me. You were like, when you first bought it, you were like, yo, check out the velocity. And it was at like 20K for like,
yeah.
And I thought it was pretty impressive. Like, I think my only, if anything, concerns is like, I just didn't know how to play something like that, because I would look at some projects maybe similar in vibe, maybe potentially, whether it was like Oni Force in the past or even Megaverse, right? And I'm just like,
it's another one of those.
I didn't necessarily think it was that. I don't know, like, because I know ones do there are ones that do well too. So I'm just thinking like, how do you know to play it, or is it like, does it always? Because a lot of times the trend would be like after reveal it doesn't pump, right? Not like, at least not. I think in recent times it's sort of changed a bit, maybe, but. Like, what was your anticipation on reveal, I guess? Did you want to get out before or no?
I did. I did. I wanted to get out before it revealed. I thought it would dip a little bit. I did not expect it to go anywhere above 5 or 6 Ethereum. So what I wanted to do was ride the wave, and I bought it 2.6, and I wanted to sell anywhere above 3. So I listed it for 3. The floor never got to 3, and somebody bought my bean for 3, and I was super excited. Somebody overpaid for my bean, and I'm like, what? That's awesome.
I remember that. I felt good. I was like, oh yeah, he got like,
I got lucky.
Right? Yeah,
I got lucky, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And I exited that position, and I'm like, okay, let me see post reveal if the art is cool. Maybe this thing could ride back up to 5. No wonder that guy's
not selling yours, by the way. Like, he overpaid not overpaid much, but like, you know what I mean? Like, he won that one in particular for some reason.
I don't know, but the guy who bought it still is holding it. He actually had multiple of them, and he still has multiple of them. So it's amazing to watch. But I held it for 2 days, less than 2 days, made $2,000. I was super excited. The floor price is currently 18.5. So one lesson here is, if you have high conviction into something, maybe buy 2 of them. And sell one, make the other one free, and that way you can hold something for risk free, and the only risk is your profit. So that's what I learned there. Current biggest bag is that Cyberkong. Bought it at 7.7. It's currently at 5.1. The thing here, though, is as Ethereum is consistently working its way up, the dollar value of when I bought it, 7.7 and 5.1 ish, I'm at kind of like a net neutral position here. And I've been thinking more and more about dollar values instead of Ethereum values. So we'll see how we play this one out. I do feel very comfortable inside of the Cyberkong, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, and this is one that we talked about, the Bored Ape Yacht Club, the Kennel Club. I don't know why it doesn't show how much I bought it for, but I bought it for about 6, and I sold it for 8, and that took 6 days. So
nice. That was legit. I like
that was a good value play right there.
I find sometimes, like, obviously it's impossible to like nail the timing right, but I feel like, unfortunately, for some of your buy-ins of the blue chips, they've almost been like just like right before or right after a dip almost, right? Like, because with the Zuki, when you bought that 2.6, it dipped down to like 2 the next day before going back up to, of course, 2.6. I think Karafuru might have been similar. But
so like, Karafuru was a emotional roller coaster for me.
Oh man, that was interesting. Yeah.
How much did I buy it for? Pull up my activity, maybe.
I think you dropped 3 on that. 3 Ethereum.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I did drop 3, and I really like the art, and I bought it pre-reveal, and I didn't want to experience what I experienced with Azuki.
That was a better flip than Azuki too, right?
I believe so. So what happened there was I bought it pre-reveal. It was a little orb thing, and I bought it, and I had full intentions of holding it through reveal. And I'm like, I'm either going to get a 1 of 1 legendary, or it's going to pump. And it did. And it kind of pumped a little bit, but then it crashed. And then it went from like, I think I held it from 3 to 4. And I'm like, oh, this thing could go to 5 or 6. And then it dropped down to like 2.5. And I'm like, oh man.
There's definitely been times when to cut you off, when I wanted to like borrow your patience, like especially with other projects, because I've had high convictions in them, and I'm just like, dude, if this is sad to say, but if I even had like a bit more of a life where it's like I just was out partying or doing something, I wouldn't have had time to like watch these things. And like that's where you've done well, is like you're either on a trip, you're doing some stuff, and it's like you just hadn't had time to check on it, and then like I've already sold out my position, and then you're like, oh well, I still have mine, I'll just sell it. Like you made more off like the Crocs than I did ultimately because of that sort of too. But yeah, that's one thing I've noticed, and I don't know if it's like, it's hard to say on what timeline, what strategy might pay off, like the get out quick strategy or the whatever. But it's like, I definitely
totally depends.
But I feel at least you've had at least up until this point, like a bit better instincts, at least in terms of holding stuff. Like maybe like I can kind of find good products, and you can kind of make good calls on them. But then like I don't know, it does depend a little bit, especially now with like the NFT space changing, where these floors maybe drop quicker. It might not be as best to hold them as long, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's one thing. I think one thing I've sort of reflected on in terms of like the biggest mistakes, and this is kind of goes back to like the creeps pass and stuff, is just yeah, like not buying into it or not buying enough of them. Also with creeps, when I sold that on a morning. I was in a bad mood. I was sort of like people I think were making some good flips, and then some other things just weren't working out. And then not only that, it was just like, you know, it wasn't really moving. Like I had the creeps pass for a couple of days and it was still sitting at like 0.17 after I bought it. I'm like, okay, I'll just get out, make some slight profit, whatever. But like, I didn't really need to sell it. I was just sort of like, you know what, screw this space. It's not screw the space, but it was just like a certain vibe that moment that I was like, I just didn't want to hold it. And then
emotions and how you feel one day and whatnot, it
like,
really
I'm not
impacts the
susceptible
way.
to that now at all. But it was just at that time, I think I just like, I don't know. It was that was soon after like some of the Irk stuff too. The Elderly Ape Club. Oh, by the way, I got my coffee. I already finished it, eh?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I got.
So
I haven't even opened mine yet.
Yeah, if you do end up like going through it, make sure to grind it up pretty good too. I found that like I got a much stronger kind of blend once I did that. Like initially, I was sort of like, oh, maybe it's not as strong as it could be, but yeah. Anyway, it has gone on for like an hour and 10 minutes now, so I don't want to actually keep you any longer if you don't need to. I might have like one wrap up thing, and then I can talk to you about more stuff later. But I think this is a good like amount to work with right now. Anything else?
Definitely.
Anything else I want to last? Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, one last thing was this Carrefour one, talking about emotions to wrap this thing up. I bought it for 3.9. It dipped down to about low 2s-ish.
Yeah.
And then it had an initial pump that I sold into for 5.
I almost wish I need to like shadow some of your plays, so I'll get in like the day after you buy. And then
yeah, it always dips. It always dips, and having that emotional,
froze, no big deal.
It always dips, but having that emotional fortitude to kind of just push through it, I think that gives you an upper hand. And that's pretty much lessons learned here is buying multiple so you have the flexibility to keep one for free, or just buying into what your gut
buy into. So like the creeps, the women from Venus, which like now isn't doing so well, but like had I just been more bullish on that, minted, like I had the pre mint on that, I could have just, you know, gotten 5 because I was in that Discord for a while. And then the Crocs one, right? Like if I just minted 5, it would have cost me less, like 0.4 ETH even, right? Like so compared to like buying like a blue chip where you had to buy like 2 of them even or something, or like this isn't that much, and the margins are so much more. Like Crocs went from 0.8 to 0.08 to 0.8. So that's sort of that's more of my thing too, is like I always want to like mitigate risk as much as possible. So whenever you get into the lower buy-ins, it's like a little bit less risk from the floor falling out. I guess it's also a little bit, but now I'm noticing too, you have to really be on the pulse with it, because like with the NFT space now that they're valuing more quality projects, it's almost like you don't want to be in these riskier ones now, it seems. So
yeah, 100%.
It's hard to say, but 100% great. Yeah, great conversation and stuff. I definitely have like so much more I could kind of like deep dive into and stuff, because I don't even think we really scratched on all the projects because like I could go through a whole activity tab and like, oh yeah, remember this project we went in or whatever, right?
Well, I could be on episode 2.
Yeah, we'll plan it out, and then even get like Jack and stuff on board and everything as well, because like I kind of want to like see how you guys are all sort of connected in some way, because you guys obviously have like even in real life connections, right? So I'm just like, okay, you've actually met each other in New York and stuff, right? So that's pretty cool. So I kind of want to deep dive into that a bit later. All right, cool. But anyway, this is the first, I don't know, podcast / episode / appearance with Stonks. I guess my name I'm going with is Buoy, from Buoy on OpenSea, and I'll check in with you guys later.
Awesome, love it, man.
Stonks, nice chatting with you. Take it easy.
Later.